Everyone's here. This is great. So today we're gonna go over the Chinese opening, and let me share my screen so you're not just looking at nothing. And here we go. Okay, so earlier this week, I don't think we actually got to go over this game, Marty, but we had a lesson together, me and Marty, and I saw that Black employed the Chinese opening, and when you attached here, this is just bad, right? Like we can see, Black kind of solidifies his corner, and White has a group between a black area. So I really wanted to cover like the Chinese opening. So let's take a look at how this all goes. So let's see. So here we have set up the low Chinese. Now in the book, regardless if it's low or high, these strategies work really well. Um, Usually white will play on this side first because we usually never want to approach a corner like this, right? Because in one move they can already take over a corner, get strong, and you become weak. So usually you want to approach on this side first because this is a 4/4 stone, so we're used to approaching this way. Black would usually jump like this, and in the past we would play this move. This was our human way of thinking. We would want to just go right for the corner. Um, Admittedly, I was never that strong against the Chinese. I studied it in the past, and I'd always forget everything about it. But nowadays, because this one space jump now gets poked by the AI, this is actually a lot simpler to me and much more easier to understand. The idea is that you peep, Black becomes a little heavy, and then you undercut his corner. So Black doesn't get a full corner, and White has this nice presence, this nice loose influence facing this way. So this is modern computer joseki. You see all the pros in computers playing it now. But I almost never see this one jump anymore because apparently this is so efficient for White. Black doesn't want to play here. This feels very slow. And like it kind of feels like Black didn't get too much, especially later when White can just take more. So Black will leave this alone and then play over here. So just already, like when I leave unfinished positions, like get an itch like in my brain, right? I feel like, oh, this feels uncomfortable. So already this like corner feels very uncomfortable for me as Black. um so Black anyway becomes more dynamic by stretching out over here because this is too slow. White plays this, Black plays this, and now we're looking at a very familiar situation when it comes to the Chinese opening. In the past, we would play moves like these, and kind of no matter what we played, it always felt to me anyway that Black has all the advantage here. Black's almost making territory on both sides. White is really cramped and undercut and unsettled. White shouldn't die. White should have enough room to get out, but it just feels very uncomfortable for me as White. Another variation that the book goes over is this one. Essentially, White plays very lightly here and creates a position, it's like a reduction. But Black gets quite a lot of points and has nothing really to worry about, and White still has a group that has to be worried about. Now, this looks actually pretty nice for White, in my opinion. But at least in my experience, most people didn't play here. Most people played here, and this became very hard for White. At least for me, I'm not the best at this area, but this is the old style. So erase everything I just said, especially if you didn't learn it. So don't worry about it. We're gonna learn the brand new way that all the pros and the computers play, and how the computers kind of destroyed this opening. I mean, this opening was so strong from I want to say the 80s all the way to 2016. Everybody loved the Chinese opening. It was really popular because it would make such a nice attacking moyo and good territory. But White in the computers came up with this move. Now, if you take any of my lessons, I talk a lot about the rule of attachment. I call it the golden rule of attachment. And to me, this is level 2. the rule of attachment. The level 2 meaning like it's the second main use you can use attachments for. The idea is that black is extremely strong in this area, right? This is a very threatening area for white to enter. But when you attach, this is a one move game. So when black attacks white, white's only going to get stronger and be okay. And so we'll see all the examples that the book that I use has. If you guys don't have the book, The Fuseki Revolution, How AI Has Changed Go, it's a really good book if you like studying the old school human way that we used to play, and then how the computer just broke it all apart, like almost every opening that we've had. But anyway, I digress. Let's go get back into the lecture. So black, has three main options. This would be the most common to me. Like immediately I'd want to attack white and take my corner. So this makes sense. This one, if you care more about the outside, this makes sense to me. You're attacking white and focusing on the outside. And this one, it's not a part of the points lovers Fuseki, but it makes me think of the most like points heavy move is this defensive move. Instead of counterattacking, you're just defending. So we can look at all three. The first, black attacks this. And normally we're used to, defending ourselves, right? We lost the liberty. And so we only have two, which means we can be manipulated. But in this area, this is the second level of attachment. This area is heavily focused with black stones. So instead of playing heavy and slow, we have to play light. Light meaning that it's okay if we end up with some sacrifices as long as we get a good position. So in this case, I don't know what you would call this move. Maybe a counter hane. For me, it feels like a dancing move. Like, black is attacking you and then you dance around him. But either way, you counter hane here. And then black will Atari like this. And you can see that, black is now taking over a large corner. Black makes sure to keep that corner. White pushes, black hanes, and then white goes for a base. Black tries to unsettle and undercut that base. White attacks this stone. Everything makes sense to me so far. Black attached and double haned. And so white has only two liberties. So the rule of attachment is we need to defend ourselves, which makes sense. And then the black plays over here to try, because black has already solidified a lot of this area. The problem with this and why it's good for white and why the computers and pros say that, this is far superior for white is because this stone alone. Now, for us as lower Q players, we probably don't feel that this stone matters too much, right? We feel that like white is a little cramped and that black got a lot of territory. But if we reverse engineer this and take this stone away, would we ever play here? The answer is no. And the reason is because it's over concentrated. Like this area is already kind of blacks, right? This is already kind of a nice solidified area. Maybe we would play over here or something like this. But this move, or where was it? This move here feels very inefficient. And so that's why the pros consider this bad. We would never play here if we had like all this wall here. And white is in a decent position. And these black stones aren't fully settled yet. And if they do live, they're not going to make a lot of points. So this is considered a huge success for white. And it all stems from this attachment here. This is the brand new move. Let's take a look at a different variation. We looked at this one. Let's look at this one. So same concept. Instead of playing heavily, we're in a bad area, so we have to play more lightly. We have to do a little more dancing. So in this case, white attaches under here. Black plays this connection because there's a big weakness here. White also connects, and when black jumps out, white jumps out. And so white is now settled. White has enough to live here. And once again, we have this move in a bad situation. It's a inefficient move. If we take away this stone, we would want the stone to be here to create more pressure against white, and to get more points as well. But because the stone is here, it's actually in an awkward or inefficient position. So once again, we've made this move stupid by dancing around on this attachment. This is why the computers in Pro consider this um, Chinese opening inefficient now, because this stone is just in a bad position. And finally, this one to me, like, I liked these positions for white. Oops, I only have black on. I like these positions for white. Like, each one of these looks pretty decent to me. Like, this is pretty solid. And this felt pretty solid. But this one is the most uncomfortable for me. So if you're playing against me and this happens, feel free to use this move. This move is extremely solid. And white still is kind of, sandwiched or in a bad area, bad neighborhood. So white plays here. Black continues to take the corner from white. White tries to settle. Black says no. White makes this great shape called the scorpion shape. If you're not familiar with this shape, it's used a lot by high single-digit Q players, pros, computers, and of course Don players. It's a beautiful shape that creates like a ko situation to make almost two eyes immediately. Black will attack it, and in some cases it would be nice to make the ko now. If you had a lot of ko threats, this would be good. But in the opening, we really don't have a lot of ko threats, right? There's nothing white can attack. So white won't make this ko now. Instead, white will just jump out. And this is where some of the book ends, explaining that white is now very flexible and has done its job of reducing this area. And so it's successful for white. Once again, I feel a little uncomfortable with this, but it's fine. Especially when black plays here, it says to play this. So this is extremely light. I think the book even says really not to worry if these stones die or not, which once again makes me feel a little uncomfortable, but I get it. I mean, as long as these two stones live, then your reduction has already been pretty successful. So I thought that was interesting. And that's why I feel like this is the strongest attack actually against these white stones compared to the normal counter attacks we would do. So the last part about this lecture is this. So normally, whether it was the 80s, 90s, or 2000s, we would normally play this right away, because, this was the easier stone to approach. But now the computer says if you don't feel like doing all what we just did, then you can just immediately attach here and make yourself comfortable. The same pretty much principles apply. We can see that we do the counter hane instead of being heavy. So we counter hane. Black will Atari. Black saves this corner. We push once, and then we take a nice 3-space extension. So we can see white is very dynamic right now, right? We have a very dynamic position, trying to get 1, 2, 3 pieces of the pie, right? Of this go board pizza. But anyway, the book doesn't continue from here. It says white's already doing a great job. Black, you can see, has settled quite well here. This is a decent amount of points. And then black can also get 3D or dynamic. So when I look at this, to me, the board looks pretty even right now. And that's what we go for white, right? We want an even position for white because we have Komi. So as long as we keep the board even, we're going to win. So that was nice to immediately attach here. The other direction we can look at is this one. And it is exactly the same as the other time. The book explains that, white can take the corner and make this position, this stone, look stupid or out of place or awkward. And so that's it. I mean, this is all the book explains about the new Chinese, or breaking the Chinese the new way. and it stems solely on this attachment. I'll have this recorded, so if you guys need to review this, you guys can review it, so that way I won't like keep going over the same variations. Okay, so now we will look at the Sanrensei again. This lesson I have taught you guys before. I don't know where all my variations went, so I guess I'm gonna have to do this by memory, but let's do it. Let's do it. So once again, we're going to talk about the Sanrensei. I talked about this a month ago. We do have a lot of faces, new faces, so hopefully this will help out anybody who has to deal with this a lot. And from my students that I've seen, they don't really follow the class fully, and that's because it was only like a 30-minute lecture, and so how are you going to memorize everything, right? So at least with this recorded now, you guys can go over it again and again. So normally white will almost always approach, either corner is fine, but you want to approach with a knight's move. Black wants to pincer because black has this stone here. So the advantages, are going to face this way. The direction of play is going to face this way. White almost always jumps into the corner first. It's the most recommended move. And in the past, white would play this. I'm sure you've all seen this. It's very common. But the computer has come up with a better move, and we'll talk about it. In the day, this used to be a trick play, because most players weaker than like 5Q would play this move. And then white was able to break out, and this caused a lot of issues with this. And there's actually really no reason to worry about any cuts or anything, because you have 3 stones. 3 stones means that you can kill any of this like tomfoolery. If there was 2 stones, I'm sure you've seen like these stones die, but because you have 3, then this was a good trick play at the time. Now it's the standard, what pros in the computer play, instead of it being a trick. Higher level players won't play here. They'll play the correct move, which is this one. White now wants to push, trying to create a split here, trying to break the knight's move. Black will patch that up. White plays this. Now, almost 9 times out of 10, I see black play here. The book actually ends on this. So for black, I don't know the proper move. Either way, it's a bad situation. If black plays away, well, this feels really painful because white is out and facing its stone. So, and I'm not saying this is the right move to play this very next move on move 18, but this is always going to be lingering here, which feels bad for black. So let's go with the most case that people play, which is, it was attached. We only got 2 liberties. We don't want to be manipulated, so we push. So now white will attack the other corner, right? And this happens very often. Even if we went the old school way, this would still happen, right? We still get a corner, and then we get to play on this side. So we can look at this. Regardless of how this looks up here, we're still usually going to get this move, which is nice. So black will pincer again, and white has 2 options. And you can go either route. Either route is good for white, which is the reason why the San-rensei is considered very bad these days. Because once white takes 2 corners, we've become really good. The computers have shown us how to become really good at breaking up this area. So we'll look at both. If you want to break up this area right away, you can play this way. Black should always protect its biggest area first. You guys might be familiar with this Joseki. Essentially, white tries to squish black. Black has 3 stones, so now jumps. Remember that this cut doesn't matter when you have 3 stones, so that's why we need 3 stones here. And now, in the olden days, even this was recommended, and then it came out of fashion for a long time, and then the computers brought it back. And the reason that we thought at least I thought this was bad for white, was because if you play anywhere else, black is going to be able to cut you and take a really big area. But this is very useful to know. not caring about playing this is a little slow. Instead, white can actually play here and break up this area. The book doesn't go through many variations of this fight. It says that no matter what black does here, it can't have a strong attack against white, which I thought was kind of interesting because I was wondering how this would kind of go, you know, but the book doesn't cover it. And to be fair, white still looks like white will be okay. White's going to be able to come out a bit and then come undercut and stuff. So, you know, I'm sure the book's correct. But it says black's best defense that black can do against white here is this move. White will break tiger's mouse and poke at shapes to see if it can cut. Black connects. White jumps. Black attacks it, counterattacks it. And then white becomes as strong as it can be, which creates a very big weakness here and here. So black connects. Black gets its solid points, but as you can tell, this really isn't that much at all. And with this wall facing a white group here, as long as this white group survives, then this black wall really isn't doing anything either. So this whole opening has been torn asunder. And white finishes it with this to finish the settling. So now white has more than enough space to live, has a great position on this side, breaking this up, has a great corner, and has two corners that haven't been touched yet. So, you know, this is amazing for white and terrible for black. We can see how the Sanrensei can be broken into pieces. The other way we can look is this one. So once again, if we even just follow the human style, or we could do the new one. Either way, it doesn't matter. You can see that white gets two corners and black has, you know, maybe 50 points here. But then the question becomes, does black really have 50 points here? And the answer is no. Once white plays here, this becomes a big problem for black. And I can't remember, I reviewed somebody's game. It was either Gone or yours, Marty, where this kind of same situation came up. I think it was actually Marty versus Gone. So, where the same situation came up and we talked about the Moyo line and how to fight it. Regardless if black attacks this stone or tries to bunker, white is going to be okay and going to kind of humiliate this Sanrensei. So, let's take a look. For me, regardless if I knew this pattern or not, this stone is under the Moyo line, right? And so it makes me want to attack it. So this is where I would probably play regardless of if I knew these patterns or not. For white, you have to know this, I think, to have a good position here. But let's talk about what white should do. So white should use the rule of attachment. White is very weak. It's in a bad situation. You know, it's in the wrong neighborhood, pretty much, right? And so you want to use your attachments to grow stronger. Regardless of what black does, white's going to become stronger. And so that's exactly what happens with this attachment. Black attacks, white gets stronger. Black breaks the tiger's mouth, trying to stop white from making good eye shape. White gets to attack by attaching. So now we have two liberties. We don't want to get manipulated, so black gets stronger. White now plays this. And this is where the book ends, but the idea remains that this shape is very strong. It's the table shape, if you guys are familiar with this ideology or the shape point, but and it's just very flexible, right? Like black's gonna have a hard time trying to do anything. White's always gonna be able to make some type of nice dancing position, some sabaki. And there's lots of weaknesses here and here, so white can really poke at these weaknesses and continue to make nice shape. So white's not gonna have too much trouble living here. Now this is when black attacks. So the next part we'll see is when black bunkers down, right? Black's trying to save as much territory as possible. White takes away a liberty from black. Black headbutts. White once again takes a liberty from black, attaching. So now black has to, you know, obviously react. Because black has so many friends here, he doesn't have to, get this strong. He can counterattack. But then when white counterattacks, black has to yield. White then plays here, breaking up this area more. Black takes as much territory as black can. And then white makes his own Sanrensei. So if we judge the board, white has taken 1, 2, 3, 4 corners, a decent side, and has a nice reduction stones here that influences this way. Where black is only playing on one side of the board, has wasted many stones for, a decent area. This is probably like 40 points or so. But, white has the upper hand. White already has almost 20 points guaranteed, plus whatever this is going to yield. So we can see black really got, broken up. And the Sanrensei, is kind of humiliated. So if your opponent plays the Sanrensei against you, you guys have no excuses now but to break them apart and humiliate them. So I hope this all helps. The Chinese one obviously was very helpful for me because I had trouble with the Chinese. The Sanrensei, it depends, each game I would do either really well or really bad, but now it's almost guaranteed that like I can do really well against the Sanrensei thanks to this. So I hope this helped you guys. That's all I have, for the 2 opening lectures. I'll put this up on YouTube maybe Monday, so you guys can review it if you need it. And if you have any reviews or want to play some games, I'm here, till noon. So let me know. But I'll end the recording here and I'll end the lecture here.